Good morning, DCRTV fans, Dave TV haters, and whatever. Welcome to Dave TV for the 24th of January, 2013. And as you can see behind me, there's snow out there. Panic! Looks like maybe an inch of that. But it's the first significantly measurable snow, I guess, of the season on the 24th of January for the Washington area. So, you know, hey, what you gonna do? It's winter. It snows in the Washington area. It almost always does. So big deal. Big effing deal. Gee, in my Washington Post today, look what I see. WTOP's Jim Farley announces retirement. Gee, Paul Farhi breaks more news. Before I talk about Jim Farley, let's just talk about this piece a second. Okay, it looks okay, but there's something missing. What's missing from Paul Farhi's piece? You see anything missing from it? I mean, it's got, tells about Jim Farley and what he's done and how he's expanded WTOP's number of journalists, and he started WFED, and that thing called Washington Post Radio that only lasted about a year or two. And, it seems to be I don't see any call letter mistakes or, it seems to get the frequencies right and all that. So good for Paul. But the one major difference, the one big difference, okay, now let's take a look at the news. Now, this was in today's paper. Of course, Farhi had it on the website last night. But DCRTV had it up before Farhi, of course. Yeah, Farhi and Farley. It's going to be confusing now. Farhi reports on Farley. But, okay, so let's take a look at the version that we ran in DCRTV. Okay, so let's flip us around here, and let's zoom it in. And there's our piece, okay? Farley, WTOP, and da-da-da-da-da. Pretty much the same stuff. But what's the difference? There's the difference. DCRTV credited where we got the information. The information was broken by a website called Radio Inc. And if you go to Radio Inc., here's their piece. And by golly, it's dated the 22nd, which was a day before. That was Tuesday, right? And so there it is. Okay? And they broke the news. Now, there's not a lot of comments or anything. It's kind of it's a nerdy little website, radio website there. But Radio Inc. broke the news. And you know what? We credited them. DCRTV, we put, that's where it came from Radio Inc. Paul Farhi didn't. Now, there's nothing wrong, Paul Farhi, did he break? That's Paul Farhi. That's Paul Farhi. He kind of trolls the internet. He sees stuff on websites, and then he sucks it up, and he, rewrites it all. He's not plagiarizing or anything. No, he's not. But he doesn't always credit where he gets his information. And he didn't get his information. He might have first saw it on DCRTV yesterday, and he's trolling the internet. But we at least credit where we get our information. Does Paul Farhi? I tell you, that's why I just can't stand this guy. I'm a Washington Postie, and I don't have to tell where I got my information. It just came from some anonymous little website out there. I'm Paul Farhi. Come on, Paul. At least somewhere in this article you should have said the news was broken 2 days ago by Radio Inc. Or at least just according to Radio Inc. You don't even have to say it got broken. Just say, first reported by Radio Inc. I don't see that. But anyhow, I digress. Jim Farley, no relation to Paul Farhi. I always liked Jim. Jim's a great guy. I think he's one of the greatest people in Washington broadcasting ever. And I'm not being paid to say that. I mean, what he's done with WTOP is just stellar. magnificent and brilliant. I mean, he's not only made it the consistent #1 radio station in the Washington market, but it's the top biller advertising revenue in the whole country. And this is the 8th largest radio market. And we're talking about billing more than radio stations in New York and LA and Chicago. That's amazing. It's the top all-newser in the country. He was one of the guys to first see FM's, the possibilities for FM for a news talk station. I mean, news talkers have been around for a long time, for 40 years. They're always on AM. And, not really, I mean, Arthur Arundel back in the 70s remember WAVA on 105.1, so maybe Arthur Arundel should be given the credit, but still, in the modern era, Jim, what was it, back in the mid 2000s, said, 1500 AM doesn't hit the western suburbs too well. Let's try moving it over. So they got the 107.7 signal out of, at first it was originally, remember, 94.3 out of Warrenton, and then they flipped it over to 107.7, so at least it was on 107.7 and 1500 for a long time. And then, not a long time, a couple of years, and then they did the big thing where they took GMS off of 103.5 and put TOP there on a inside the Beltway signal, and ba-boom! The rest is history. Jim's a really cool guy. I think he's done a lot of great things. And I think, he's always been open to me, which is interesting because a lot of radio folks in this market don't like to talk to me. I have to get my stuff, oozing out under the trains, under the carpet. I meet with people, in trench coats in dark parking decks. But Jim's always been real open to me. He doesn't seem to have a problem with folks at TOP posting on the mailbag. He's been open and a friendly guy. Now, I did make a comment yesterday that I said something like, this is a good time if Jim wants to leave because TOP is pretty much at the highest ratings it'll ever be, and the station really has nowhere to go but down. And he took a little offense with that and said, "Hey, Dave, that seems like a cheap shot. It's like I'm just looking out for myself and I'm leaving when the going's good and I don't really care what happens to the station." I didn't mean that. My quote kind of got misrepresented. I don't know, maybe I wrote it in a way that it didn't quite, I didn't mean that. What I meant was just looking strictly at a business point of view. TOP's got great ratings now. They theoretically, I guess they could go higher, couldn't they? I mean, what are they at, a 7 or 8 share? They could go to a 10 share. I guess they could. So theoretically, even if Farley leaves, Laurie Cantillo could take the ratings even higher. So, he could be leaving on the upward curve. But you look at CBS, and they've got that all-newser WNEW there on 99.1, and it's been going on for a year. And one of the things that I do notice, I was looking at those all-news trends the other day. Somebody sent me those all-news trends the other day. And, if you want to look at the trends, there is an upward trend for WNEW. I mean, you look at where they started. They were 35th place with an 0.3 share in February of 2012. Okay? That was their first month under their belt with the all-news format. And they ended the year in 25th place with an 0.7 share. So they went from an 0.3 share to an 0.7 or an 0.8 share toward the end of the year. That's doubling their ratings. Okay? And that took them up to 25th place. So you could say, that trend would be a little bit worrisome for me. Even though they're still only 25th or 24th place in the ratings, they did double their share in that 25-54 demo. Doubling your share when you don't have a lot of audience isn't that hard to do. But it is an upward trend, and that upward trend could continue. We could see WNEW at the end of the year maybe cracking the top 20 in the radio ratings. Again, TOP would still be up there in the top 5, but the trend is there. And I don't know. You just have to say, that's my comment about WTOP's ratings have nowhere to go but down. I'm not criticizing Jim Farley, and I'm not taking a cheap shot at Jim Farley. I'm just simply saying, it's like the flood waters, the water's here, the water's there, it's going to equalize eventually. And I do think that CBS has a quality product on WNEW, okay? It is. It's a good product. It's a solid product. And I think the ratings for it will continue to slowly go up, and I think that's what CBS realizes. And I think that's what Hubbard realizes over there at WTOP. And Jim Farley, he's 64, retirement age approaching. I think he probably maybe even delayed retirement because he wanted to stick around and kind of fight off this evil monster of WNEW. But, he could stick around another couple years and WTOP's ratings could decline. And, maybe it's better for him to get out now. I don't know. I'm not saying it as a cheap shot. I'm saying it as just looking at the reality of the situation of the old news battle here in Washington. That's what I do. That's what I do. But anyhow, so I do think it's going to be a tougher couple of years for WTOP in the next couple of years with WNEW around. I think that is inevitable. And Jim Farley is leaving the station. That is what he said. And it will be really interesting to see how that all comes together. I think the folks over at WNEW are probably thinking, why is Farley getting out now? I'm just saying what I think. That's why I'm here. That's what Dave does. Dave just says what he thinks. That doesn't mean I'm putting down Jim at all. I like Jim. I like Jim a lot. I think Jim's a great guy. I think he's he'll go down in history as one of the greatest, I think, radio guys in Washington history, period. But you got to wonder, the dynamics of this whole thing. I think, the talk we get from WTOP is they're not really that concerned about WNEW, but I think when they're laying in bed there late at night, 3 a.m, they wake up and go, oh my God, the shark is out there. the WNEW shark is out there. So, I don't know. There we go. That's what I calls them as I sees them. All right, folks. Thanks for watching Dave TV for this 24th of January 2013. Live long and prosper.